Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today our guest is Jason Stuart. When you think of one of the most prolific character actors who's an outrageously openly gay stand-up comedian, only one name comes to mind, and that's Jason, of course. Jason's appeared on Birth of a Nation, the indie drama Hank, the action film Abducted, and I could go on in his films. He's been in award-winning films Tangerine, Love is Strange, Gia. On TV, he's had guest roles on Sleepy Hollow, Entourage, The Closer, House, Everybody Hates Chris. I can just keep going on. He has over 150 television and film credits. So he is so busy as an actor, but if that's not enough for you, he's also a comic. So he's been on Gotham Comedy Live, Red Eye, One Night Stand Up, and a bunch of other places. And since he's so super bored because he's never doing acting or comedy, he also wrote a book. His autobiography last year, Shut Up, I'm Talking, is about coming out in Hollywood and making it to the middle. So we've got a lot to talk about today, Jason. Excited to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much. As they say, there's a lot to unpack.
Exactly. So, and I think the best way we can do this to start unpacking is we need your origin story. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what your childhood was kind of like.
Well, I have two wonderful parents. Both of them, my mother was a very big star when I was a kid, but didn't have a film. And my father was a king and didn't have a country. So two very egotistical parents. So I became an actor and a comedian so I could get some attention. My parents got married very young. My mother was 17. By the time she was 25, she had 3 children and wanted to kill herself. She actually lost her wedding ring in the snow in New York and said to my father, "Does this mean the marriage is over?" Yeah. She's had 4 husbands since then, or really 4 altogether with my dad. 2 she married, 2 she killed. And my father is another interesting story. My father is a Holocaust survivor, not the camps, but the places that we do, the terrible places now that we have here in this country for people from Mexico and Latin America. And my father basically ran from the Nazis most of his childhood, teenage years. He came here in 1949, and he is a self-made millionaire. That's who he was. And he came here and learned to work in the schmata business, which means the rag business, which means for him it was neckties. And he was a janitor in a necktie manufacturing company. Then he became a tie cutter to cut the patterns. And then he learned this really special way to cut patterns really fast. And he became this big macha, which is a big, important guy that got a job in Los Angeles. He came here and he became the vice president and then the part owner of the company. And then he went into real estate. And my father always used to say to me, when you go to the interview, this is what you do. You wear a tie so they know that you mean business. And what he really meant was to be your best person and to be the best that you can be on that interview. And that's what he taught me. My father's been passed around, I guess, since 2012, so that's around 7 or 8 years. And it's funny because I get emotional. He's in my heart always.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so it sounds like you come from, a colorful background.
To say the least.
When did the acting bug catch on for you? Was that from birth you wanted to kind of be on stage, or did it grow?
Yeah, I was always a funny kid. I remember, when I was around 8 or 9, I started doing plays in my temple or in my community center or in school. And I remember I was doing a play called Santa Claus for President, and it was in the Parks and Recs of Hollywood at the Gardner Park. And it was a play about Santa Claus for President, and there were all these different countries. And I had to wear a fat suit. And I thought, how do I wear this fat suit? What was it? And then I saw I Love Lucy. For those who don't know, Lucille Ball, for these kids, was one of the biggest television stars in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. And she was pregnant. She was the first person to be pregnant on TV. So when she was on the show being pregnant, she would get out of the chair and she used her whole belly and her whole self, and she got all these laughs. So I thought, oh my God, I've got a fat suit. I'm going to pretend I'm pregnant. So during this whole play, I got all these laughs. And then I remember at the end of the play, when everybody was coming over to me and congratulating me, Meyer Levine, who was the director of the play and the creative director at the Gardner Parks, said to me, "So, you're going to do this, huh?" And I said, "Yeah." And he knew it. He knew I was hooked. And that hooked me. It also goes under the origins of, I'll tell this little story. When I was very young, I went to go see a movie called Funny Girl with a woman named Barbara Streisand. Now, for those who don't know Barbara Streisand, she was the Lady Gaga of her time. And she was outrageous, and she had this incredible singing voice, and she was funny on the outside, and she was sad on the inside. And she's in this movie about this former Broadway vaudevillian star, Fanny Brice. And she's in love with Nicky Arnstein, which was played by Omar Sharif. And I thought, oh my God, Omar Sharif, he's gorgeous. And I'm, like I'm a baby. I'm like 10 years old. And I'm watching this movie, and I had driven to this theater on my Schwinn bike with a silver seat, and it was olive green, and I parked in front, and I saw her walk. In the first shot in the movie, you see her walk. She's wearing a leopard coat, and she looks at the camera, and she goes into a backstage of a theater, and she looks into a mirror, and she goes, "Hello, gorgeous." Again, I was hooked. But I thought to myself, if I'm in love with Omar Sharif, who am I left to be but Fanny Brice, Barbara Streisand? So it was, I guess, quite a journey for me to figure out who I was, clean up the wreckage of my past and become a man.
Right. Cool. Well, so, excuse me. We all go through that phase, right? From, early adolescence into our teens, into our 20s, where we're discovering who we are, what we value, what we want to be. And so you had a lot going on during this time with discovering who you were, but also now transitioning into Hollywood and doing the things that you want to do for forever. We haven't talked about the comedy side of that. Was that factoring in early on too, or were you mostly on stages?
I was always funny. I did lots of plays. I started to do student films. And when I was 16, I started sending my picture and resume in the mail. For those of the kids who don't know what that is, it's a thing called an envelope, and it's paper. And you put a picture in there of yourself and a resume, and you send it with some stamps. Those are things that mean money. And I would send it to TV shows that I liked. And I got a call from the casting director of a show called All in the Family, which you may have seen if they know who Norman Lear is. They've been doing a lot of his shows on live TV now, doing it live with current stars. And I got a call to be on a show called Maude with B. Arthur, who later got very famous again from being on Golden Girls, playing Dorothy. And I said, hey, I'm 17, and I'll need this tutor on the set, because I knew all this because I had been in an acting class, a professional acting class, from the time I was 14 years old until I was 16. Did it for 2 years. I went there Friday and Saturday for 2 years straight, except for the one day that Barbara Streisand had a TV special on called Barbara Streisand and Other Musical Instruments. And I took that off and I called in sick, because in those days you didn't have VCRs. And so what happened was I got into comedy that way because I really thought that I was really funny, but I've always told the truth. So when they called me to do this show, I couldn't do it because I was 17. And they said, the minute you're 18, please call. And I waited a day after my 18th birthday, and I called them, and they gave me a job on a show called One Day at a Time, which they also redid. And it's on, I think, Pop now. It was on Netflix or something. And I got my first job on that show, and my first job was racing Valerie Bertinelli's boyfriend to a door, slamming it, and walking in without any lines, a silent bit. And of course, I was so nervous, I slammed the door so hard that the molding fell off. And there was my first bit of comedy once again.
So you've been involved in Hollywood really most of your life. You got in early.
Honestly, my whole life. I've never not been in Hollywood. I grew up in Los Angeles, right near the May Company, right near the tar pits and CBS studios. And I used to go sneak into the studio, walk around and see things. That's when you could walk in and just watch stuff. And I would walk around and look at the props. And, I think the guy knew me because he always let me walk around. And I'd run into, I see people. I'd go see all the shows. I'd sit in the audience. And whenever they'd ask a question, I raised my hand. And I was on... I was on Password once, raising my hand. They said, what time is Odd Couple on an ABC? And I said the time. They said, give that man $1. And that's the first time I made $1 in show business. $1. Can you believe it couldn't give me at least $20?
Yeah, they're Scrooges over there, not wanting to share. So with this long career in Hollywood, I'm curious. We always ask the actors on this show, what are the highs and the lows of being in Hollywood? And I think for you in particular, because your journey there is a little different from others, just because you started at such a young age. So I'm curious, what are some of the hardest things that you've had to experience in Hollywood?
Well, I guess being sexually harassed in the comedy community for most of my career.
Mm-hmm.
And until the last year or two, I didn't realize that I was allowed to say no. I didn't realize it because it didn't just happen by fellow comedians. It happened by club owners. And it wasn't, when you're sexually harassed, it doesn't mean that the other person is gay and coming on to you. It's about power.
Right.
And it's about putting you in your place. And it's making it a very difficult work environment. And this happened to me even recently when I spoke up at a club that I'd worked in for most of my career. And I spoke up, and I had a very famous friend who you guys all know. I'm not going to say her name because it's probably not the right thing to do at this time. One day maybe I will in the second book. She was a dear friend of mine, and she was working on her special, and I went down to see her at the club, and she said, how come you haven't been showing up very much lately? And I said, well, I've just been feeling anxiety attacks about coming in. I just realized that all these women are saying, me too, time's up. And I'm thinking, God, me too. God, I'm over a certain age. It's enough already of people just sort of, it felt like high school. And it really stopped me from wanting to be involved. And she actually approached the owner who had been doing it to me, and he denied it. And then he stopped hiring me. So I lost my job. And that's happened before. I've over the years, this was an important one that I lost. And this man has been very good to me over the years. Mm-hmm. So that's the strange thing. But yet there's a lot of abusiveness that happened quite a bit that made it very problematic for me to be comfortable doing my best work.
Yeah. Now, you've written a book about coming out in Hollywood and making it to the middle. I don't know.
I'm talking.
Oh.
Shut up, I'm talking.
So
available on Amazon.
But I'm curious about the subtitle about making it to the middle. What does that mean? What's that all about?
Well, around, I'd say 13, 14 years ago, I decided to tape my own special because no one had asked me. I had been headlining comedy clubs for maybe 20 years, 25 years. Mm-hmm. And I had this great act that I had that was 45 minutes to an hour. And I wanted to tape it, but I couldn't get a special. They weren't going to give an openly gay guy a special. It just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Only one other guy got one on HBO, and that was the late Bob Smith, God bless him, that I knew of at the time. And I thought, well, I'm going to do my own. So I actually had friends that I called, people. I'd worked on a short film with this woman, and she was a director, and she was such a great, so organized. I got her, we got all these people, and we worked, and we created this special at a club date that I was doing. We taped 4 shows. We used one as a template, and then we kept adding other things because I'm very improvisational in my show. And then I sold this show. And I thought, what should the name of it be? What should it be called? Where am I? Well, I'm in the middle of my life. I'm in the middle of the country, and I'm in the middle of my career. And I always thought I was going to be either a really big star or a failure. Well, I made it to the middle.
Huh. That's awesome. That's a cool way to look at it. Yeah. Now, a lot has changed in Hollywood in the last 10 years, and some of that's good and some of it's not so good. How have things improved or maybe declined as far as being an openly gay man in Hollywood?
Well, it's an interesting thing. People say it's changed so much and we should be proud of it, which we are. And it also, I became, 15 years ago, I co-created with Duncan Crabtree Ireland, the Screen Actors Guild After LGBTQ Committee, which I co-chair now with Tracy Godfrey. And I did that because I wanted to support openly gay actors. I've been going to Outfest, which is the biggest film festival in Los Angeles and in the country. And I've been hanging out with all these out actors, and a lot of them were very uncomfortable and very scared, and some of them were out to different degrees, and I wanted to be of support. So we started creating this. And then you start realizing that everybody has a different feeling of what being out is.
Right.
And how hard it is for some people and how easy it is for others. For me, in my career, since I didn't have very much work in the 80s when I first started out, so I'm at a disadvantage of catching up with my straight counterparts. I didn't have a series. And I can tell you I was on Star Search at the same time Martin Lawrence was. I won one episode, and then he won the next one by a quarter of a point. And you would think that I would have been offered a TV contract or something because I was a quarter of a point. And I was just as funny and new and fresh and young as he was. But he was offered it. He got to do the remake of What's Happening Now, and then he got his own series. And I had the same guy trying to get a series for me. Never happened. I had maybe 10 to 12 different people trying to get series for me in that, from the 80s until the early 90s when I came out on TV. And it wasn't the same. So as I've become a prolific character actor, I didn't get the same opportunity. So sometimes the money isn't the same as my straight counterparts. I paid less. Sometimes the opportunities are less. Sometimes I'm fired before I even get to the job and I don't even know about it. A couple of years ago, I had been offered a string of casinos to do, which was those are great jobs because you go in, you do the show, and you leave. And it's really easy and fun, and the crowds all want to have a good time because they're on vacation. And they canceled all my shows because they found out I was gay. I don't even know if they even saw my act. So there's still that kind of thing going on. I've been fired from shows because I was gay, never asked if I could do something else. One particular sitcom. I have been, people are always putting me in a box, trying to say this is what I do. And that happens to everybody, but my box is smaller. So I've had to learn. So I'd say around 10 or 12 years ago, I got off the road and I decided to not work as much on the road and to focus on one-day events to make money, gay events or colleges, or Jewish events or just theater gigs. And I focused on my acting career, and I decided to really not listen to anybody anymore and go, okay, I can be a great character actor. I don't have to play the funny gay guy. I don't have to play the prissy hotel clerk. I don't have to play the manager of something that says, you go over there, I'll be back in 5. And I got a job guest starring on The Closer in 2009. And I played a guy who talked like this, and he was a manager of a storage facility, and all this stuff was going on. And all of a sudden, I'm a character actor playing a straight guy on a hit show. And that sort of changed. That was the beginning of my career changing. I went back to class. I studied playing different kinds of parts, different kinds of walks, different kinds of voices. I worked on my voice. I lowered my voice. It took me years. And I tried to, in a sense, not be a one-trick pony, because I bought what people told me, right, that I could only do that. And that led me to The Birth of a Nation, that film that I did that really changed my whole career.
Well, let's talk about Birth of a Nation for a while. Why did it have such an impact for you? And why is it something that our students watching this, why should they be interested in it?
I say to anybody who wants to be in show business or any business, that you build it and it will come. They think I wrote that. It's Kevin Costner and,
yeah.
Build it and it will come, and keep putting building blocks on top of stuff. You can't do something expecting an immediate result. If somebody would have told me it would take 35 years to get an incredible part in an incredible movie with a story that I believed in, that touched my heart, that was exactly the way I felt when I went into the movie theater, that the lights would go dark and I would see something on screen from a different point of view and I would change my point of view. That was The Birth of a Nation, which was about Black abolitionist Nat Turner. And it was written, directed, starring, and produced by Nate Parker. And that man changed my life. If I never see him again, I still am in touch with him, but if I never see him again, it will never change for me. And I got to work with people like Asia Naomi King from Murder with Viola Davis, How to Get Away with Murder. I got to work with Armie Hammer. I got to work with Jackie Earle Haley, Oscar nominee. I got to work with Anjanou. So many incredible actors, Penelope Ann Miller. I mean, just a Golden Globe nominee from who worked with all the Godfathers into the movies, Pacino and Brando. Just everybody. And I got to work with these incredible people, and I got to step up to the plate. And what happened is that around 10 years ago, I had read that they were giving tax breaks all over the country to make movies. And I thought, well, I have to get agents out there so they can get me a part. So I got agents all over the country. I had like 5 or 10 of them. Nobody did anything for me. I did it for years. And one day I get a call from this agent in New Orleans, Brenda Nussbaumer, and she says she's interested in handling me. This is 3 months after I sent her the thing. So she started sending me out. One day she called me, but she sent me out for great parts all the time, which my LA agents never did. Always small roles, nothing really, big. So she sends me up for this part of a white heterosexual Christian plantation owner in 1831. And I'm a gay liberal Jew. Oy. So I thought, I can't do this. And I was doing a gig that night. So that means, and she said, we have to get it to them by noon, Los Angeles time, the next day. I had an assistant, thank God. And I said, and he was working for me once a week. And that was the day I said, come over to the house, get there at 9 a.m. I'm going to do this. We worked on it for 2 hours. I did it. I sent the tape in. And I forgot about it. Then a week later, I get a call, and my agent says, some guy named Nate Parker wants to meet you. So I have to get it. So what I did is I had American Airlines credit card, and I could use that for a freaking flyer. I got one of those shit cars, stayed in some crap hotel where a woman was pregnant, standing on the balcony smoking, and some guy was by the pool looking like he was going to kill me in my sleep. 3 hours early, I go to the mall, and where it's in a mall, that's where an outside mall, strip mall. And I go there, and and I had been practicing the N-word all night because I'm playing a slave owner. I'd never said the N-word ever in my life. Maybe once in my car when I was listening to Snoop Dogg and singing his songs. The windows were up by accident. Oh my God. So I remember in the hotel when I was practicing the N-word, there was a knock at the door, and the housekeeper goes, what's going on in there? She says, I hear voices. I said, I don't know. It's just a bunch of Republicans on TV. Anyway, so I'm sitting there in the parking lot. I'm rehearsing my part near my car, and some guy walks by me. He says, I know you. And I said, who could that be? And it was Nate Parker. Nate Parker, because I thought, I have a fan in the middle of a parking lot in New Orleans, Savannah, Georgia, rather. And he was so handsome and so charismatic, and I don't even know what he said, but because I saw him in the parking lot, I was able to go and just breathe, because I hate first days of school. I hate first days on a set. I hate first days of anything. And I went in, did the part, did the best I can. He said, could you do it again? You're very serious in this, and we love the dramatic parts, but could you be a little funny? This guy is very much of a blowhard. I thought, can I be funny? So I added some movement to the part, did it again, left, said, thank you very much, got home. The next day, I got a call from my agent's assistant. She says, how's your day going? I said, well, it's fine. She says, well, it's about to get a lot better. I said, why? She says, you got the part. And I said, what part? She said, the plantation owner. I said, don't you lie to me. She said, why would I lie? I'm a nice country girl. And I just burst into tears. It changed my whole life. I had 8 scenes in a major motion picture with major stars. And I had a part that was integral to the story. And I was working with incredible people. And the film went to Sundance, won Best Picture at Sundance by the audience and the professionals, the jury. And it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had. Just as an artist, as a human, to be a part of that, to work with them on the set, to be able to hold my own for, it just completely changed me. And this is how great Nate Parker is. I know I'm taking too long with this, but this is how great he is. When I got the part, I flew to Savannah 5 days early and stayed with a friend of mine in Jacksonville, Florida, which was an hour and 45 minutes away before I started. And I called his assistant and I said, who was Denzel Washington's daughter? And I didn't even know it. And I said, if there's a table read, if he has time to meet with me, I'd love to talk to him about the character, because I hate first days. And he set a time. He changed it 3 times. I rented another car on my own dime, drove there, an hour and 45 minutes, got there. He was staying in this house that looked like it was Thanksgiving. His family was there and people running and kids. And he came to the door barefoot, put on his shoes, walked up the stairs, and there was an office above in a garage. And he said, he turned around and was looking for the script. And I said, I just want to thank you for casting me. And then he says, no, thank you. And I just, oh man, I just almost, thank God he was turned around, because I almost completely lost it. Everything I did was right.
Right.
You know, everything was in place.
That's awesome. Well, and it's no surprising, because this comes after years and years of building up to that. And I think,
God, if someone told me it would take 35 years to get a good part, I would have went, oh God, I'm not going to do that.
yeah,
And there's a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs.
right.
And it's about building bricks. It's about building, you know, a career. You know,
Right.
if you want to make money really quick, this is not the business for you.
Right.
If you don't really love the work, I think that goes in any career. If you don't really love the work and you just want the outcome of it, when you get it, it won't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to love what you're doing.